As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. I'm never gonna give up.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Harry, good morning, and it's always good to hear your voice, Harry. And actually, Harry's our station manager for WNHH 103.5 FM. And quite frankly, my bias and my belief and my conviction is that this station, WNHH 103.5, is one of the best in the nation. I say that with all sense of humility, but also all sense of pride. So check us out, the other guests and the artists and the various co-hosts, and a shout out to Paul Bass. Today is really kicking off on Friday, January 13th, 2023. It's an important show because I've heard, many of you know of my background here in the New Haven area. I came in 1971, but I'm hearing more and more in conversation with folks, given either my blog or my radio shows or the recently elected alder person, this word depression, just the mental challenges that folks are encountering. I'm convinced that Adam and Eve encountered issues of mental dispute, and as we know in the Bible talks about some of brothers killing brothers. So perhaps it's part of the human condition that we are always looking for ways to kind of become healthier. But certainly in the last contemporary last 8 or 9 years, I've been hearing more and more folks that's feeling the impact of, could be society, could be the impact that this is 2023, and why we've not solved some problems about getting along and being better. But without digressing any further, I've asked Couture Bryant and Dr. Alicia Greer-Rogers to join me in chatting about this word of depression, whether it's a fashion, whether it's in vogue, or whether we even kind of continue to stimulate this negative feeling by mentioning the word. Should we have another word? Language is very important in terms of how it impacts your social being, your cognitive development, et cetera. So we have this word that's out here, and perhaps we need to kind of think of a way of substituting joy or passion or purpose in place of feeling kind of low. But I have some experts on the show, as I say, Couture Bryant and Dr. Alicia Greer-Rogers, to bail me out and to hear their views about where do we go as society in general, but more specifically, what kind of tactical tools could folks use and methodologies for us to just the tinkerment to do to another person as you would like them to do to you. So Couture and Dr. Rogers, good morning. How are both of you doing?
Peace and blessings. I am doing well.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing very well and blessed today.
Good. So let's kick off in terms of the courage that both of you ladies are demonstrating by going public on the Tom Ficklin Show for the next 55 minutes. Do you feel that you have something to share pertaining to understanding depression and alleviating depression? And again, I'm going to kind of revise the title about how do we kind of more exercise our joyful motifs. So Couture, perhaps start with why you've taken the courage to kind of come before us and talk about your expertise and your passion and your skill set, and then Dr. Greer perhaps follow along as well.
Well, peace and blessings, family, the family of Greater New Haven and the universe. My name is Couture Bryant, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a registered nurse and an addiction specialist. So I've been working in the field of recovery for a very, very long time, all of my career. So I've seen different levels of depression and what we call depression. And there is Dr. Greer go into perhaps a little bit more in depth, but, there are levels of depression. And I think that trying to recognize, what are those things that are influencing people's lives, that are making them feel sad or extremely sad, or stuck and feeling like they can't move forward in their life. The ultimate stuckness in depression is what we call a catatonic depression, which means the individual is literally unable to speak or to move or to do any of those things to take care of their activity of daily living. But I believe that, and it has been my work, that particularly, in the communities of color, Black, Brown, and Indigenous people who have been colonized, that we have had generations of trauma. And so therefore we've had multiple generations of depression. And we've always known, or me as a medical person, we've always known that when you hold on to that kind of energy, it does impact you physically. So when we talk about those stress, quote unquote, stress related illnesses, and what is chronic stress can produce feelings of sadness and feeling low. We talk about asthma, we talk about obesity, we talk about hypertension, connective tissue diseases. So our body at some point in time is going to say, you have to figure out how you're going to deal with it. And so that's really has been the work, has been to help people to really, one, normalize their experience, their life experience, and to give them a voice to speak their truth about their experience, which is basically what Dr. Greer and I do on a daily basis when we are in clinical practice with individuals. We try to create a safe space for them to lend voice to their human experience.
Excellent. Dr. Greer, let's hear your courageous statement about kind of being
Absolutely. So again, thank you for having me. I am Alicia Greer Rogers, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. Yes, my roots are also in New Haven. And I also specialize in addiction. So I had the pleasure of having Keturah supervise me a long time ago when I was doing my internship and fellowship at Yale. I thought it was important to come on this show today to talk about decreasing stigma as it relates to discussing all mental health issues, but depression in particular. My clinical practice focuses on working with people of color. And there are a lot of different issues, I think, that impact our experiences with depression and also our willingness to discuss it amongst ourselves and to seek care. And so any opportunity that I have to sort of spread the word about normalizing seeking care, normalizing self-care, normalizing community building and finding supports, then I always gravitate towards that. And also when Keturah calls, I do it. So yes.
Okay. So you're on her list also of
I am on her list. Yes.
I see. I've been trying to get off the list for the last 20, 30 years. I guess I've been addicted for whatever reason to, sometimes there's good addictions and bad addictions, but we'll hear today, tomorrow, and Sunday, Monday, MLK's words, voice, image lifted up. And tell me, where do we go from here? Both of you have been in the trenches in terms of making this a better place. But where do we go from here in 2023? Now, share a little bit about how you see you're investing your time and skill set and expertise in making this world a better place. So where are we going from here in terms of your perspective and your particular path of healing? Keturah?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, we have to really have conversations about how we are feeling, how we are experiencing life, how we have experienced life. I think the most important thing to do for an individual is to validate their experience, regardless of what it is, good, bad, indifferent, challenging or not, to validate their experience. Because at this point, it's some people don't want to hear about how you're feeling, right? Because they have their own stuff they're not dealing with. And so we oftentimes will go to your first window is oftentimes your primary care physician. Problem with that has been for many, many years is that the way the healthcare system is, a lot of people do not access primary care. They use the emergency room. We haven't had, we're still struggling with a universal healthcare so that
Mhm.
people can have access longitudinally. You are not gonna, it's really difficult for you to even think that you're gonna go in and start talking about those things that are creating this sense of sadness, this sense of not wanting to be here. You'll go in and you'll say something else like, I really have, I don't understand why I've been falling a lot,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Or you'll come in and you'll give something other than. And oftentimes, particularly if you're walking into an emergency room, they really don't have time for those kind of conversations. And if you're not going to see a physician over a long period of time that can get to know you, you can begin to trust,
Mm.
that you can then begin to share what is going on in your life. And I've even experienced that as a healthcare professional, going to my primary care physician and, things are going on with me and they don't ask me, like, what else is going on in your life? They're
Mhm.
like, "What's your blood pressure? Looks good. This looks good. This looks good." And they're kind of whisking me out of the office before I have time to just kind of relax into it and then begin to talk about what else is going on in my life. So it doesn't just happen for people that are financially, economically, or insurance challenged. It happens to those of us that know. But trust is the primary factor. And we know that in healthcare, that's an issue. That's a
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
And it crosses many barriers around how your sense of gender identification, your sense of me as a female, like things that are going on with me as a female, me as a Black female. So we have a number, and physicians aren't trained. They're trained to look at this little clock that they press and they say, okay, the insurance company is going to pay me for the next 20 minutes, right? So I got to get it in. And there's certain checklists that they have to do. So that's, we have to begin to do a better job with that. And I think that once we begin to use the strengths in our communities
Mhm. Mhm.
to address that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Well, actually, I'm gonna push you right now. So, Dr. Rogers, before I come to you, share a little bit, and hopefully we can sprinkle for the next 45 minutes throughout discussion the practical steps and the accessibility and both of your availabilities to not just people to hear this show, but how they can then take action. So, Couture, tell us about Zola. You have behind you was it ZOLA? Something called Zola, whatever that is. I mean, I'm sure it has a meaning for you. So unpack that a little bit. Then Dr. Rogers, same question about your practice and your accessibility.
Mhm.
So, I've been quote unquote retired from my full-time, my day job, as they would say, and had a wonderful, wonderful teaching and learning and enriched career with the state of Connecticut and Demas and Connecticut Mental Health Center, the Substance Abuse Treatment Unit. So I retired, and even prior to retirement, this thing inside of me was like, what happens after loss, right? Which is really a primary trigger for a lot of individuals is loss of health, loss of home security, all those things. But we oftentimes, when somebody says, you're dealing with the loss, the very first thing that'll come to their mind is you've lost a person. So with the Zola experience, we talk about this. It is a 7-session wellness experience. It is primarily a peer-run experience. You do get training in it, but basically the essence of it is to identify what we call your lost love objects. And your loss of objects can be a myriad of things because we have multiple losses. It can be your health, it can be security, it can be relationships, it can be a number of things. And so this 7-session wellness experience helps you to lend voice to your experiences. And it begins to build a community or a cohort of support from the very first session through the 7th session. And we'll be rolling some things out about that in the community in the very near future. So that's what the Zola experience is. And we're using it in other parts of the country and the world. And people
Excellent.
are saying that it is impactful. And we piloted it actually in New Haven in 2012 for about 5 years. Many people experienced Zola. We had a contract with the Howard Cahill Funeral Home Services. And initially it was focusing on those individuals that had lost a person. And I went through my own Zola experience with my own losses, et cetera. And in 2020, God said, it's time for you to do this, but you got to do it differently. And the difference was to expand the definition of loss. So you can humanize loss. Right? So then once you humanize it, then you can humanize the interventions, and it'll impact the stigma of going to seek help. So it really can be an entry-level point for that. And we do other things like acupuncture, ear acupuncture. That is something that we can teach very quickly as well. And it can be part of what I want to call our community mental health first aid kit. So acupuncture, yoga, deep breathing, mindfulness, all of those things you can do in your home.
And Dr. Rogers, please let's piggyback on that, because you guys are a dynamic duo.
Yes. So I'll follow in Katura's footsteps and just reiterate that my career started also at CMHC, at the Substance Abuse Treatment Unit, and at West Haven Mental Health. And then I spent many years working at Cornell Scott Hill Health Center. Big ups to that awesome agency. And teaching as well. So teaching psychology at Southern, at UNH, at Charter Oak. I am a clinical faculty member at the Yale School of Medicine, still in the Division of Addictions where I trained. And my perspective on doing this work is always sort of doing clinical, but also teaching. What spaces can I go into to talk about topics to teach others? In the past couple of years, I've added a little something to my plate, and that has been being a DEI professional, which really sort of sprang out of always doing clinical work in spaces that focused on treating historically underserved populations.
The diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes. Diversity. So I have a certification in diversity and inclusion. I spent the past few years doing some of that work at Cheshire Academy, where I'm also the consulting psychologist. And allowing myself to sort of blend those two things together has been amazing. So again, my clinical work focuses on underserved populations. That includes people of color, that includes members of the LGBTQ plus community, and that includes focusing on women's mental health as well. And that covers a broad range of issues. To your question though, Tom, what do I think 2023 should focus on? I think it should focus on seeing each person as an individual, because that is how you validate everyone's experience, right? So really simply, I often talk about dismantling the monolith of Blackness. So we might be Black, but that doesn't mean we have the same experience, right? I could be Black and Caribbean. Katura could be Black and something else. You are a Black man. We are Black women. And so really respecting our intersectionalities and the different things that each person is bringing to the table, all of those experiences, getting to understand those and helping people be really seen and really heard. So that's a big push for me at all times. And I think we need more of that in healthcare. After that, I also really think it's important to help people understand that depression isn't perhaps as this scary thing that they think about, right? Because that's one of the barriers of talking about it when you're with your primary care doctor is I don't want them to think X about me. And the reality is that there's a whole range of different presentations for depression, and you can have mild depression all the way to the more severe depression that you heard Katora mention, where you are catatonic. And so, just having the dialogue, being okay with talking about how you're feeling, then allows people to, let's talk a little bit more. Let's make sure we're putting it out there how we're actually feeling and not worry about the fear that comes with that. I think that's really critical.
I'm going to ask you toward the end of the show also to kind of provide this information, but jump in now and a little commercial about how folks can reach you and contact you, because although I believe that people are listening to each of the 55-minute shows diligently, so sometimes folks have to get up and go this and only have 10 minutes. So Couture, how can folks, if you said something that I'm sure that you have, that has enticed and stimulated folks, how can they reach out to you, find out more about Zola, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay. Well, first of all, you can go to my Facebook page, Katora Bryant. You can reach me via email at katorabryant@thezolaexperience.org. So those are the two primary avenues that you can reach out to me on Messenger as well.
Excellent. And Dr. Rogers?
Yes. So my contact info is a little bit more complicated. I am listed on Psychology Today. If you'd like to reach out to me to schedule, I am also listed on Therapy for Black Girls. As you heard me mention, you can reach me that way. Yes, you can also email me to ask about scheduling. So my email is agrier, AGRIER, .road2wellness, that's the name of my practice, @gmail.com.
Excellent. The road to wellness. I like that.
Yes.
And Dr. Roger just mentioned, when you mentioned Psychology Today, literally you just plug in Psychology Today on your web browser, and
Yes.
what pops up?
When you plug in Psychology Today, I think the first thing they ask you for is a location or your zip code. So if you're putting in, let's say 06511, you will see the providers in that area, and you scroll through and you will be able to see me because I'm local. So yeah.
Excellent.
And there are photos. So you can sort of pick somebody that, you think, oh, they have this, kind face, or they look like me, those things.
So talk about the look like me factor and the transference factor and the comfort level factor, because in spite of us knowing that we need more therapists, we need more teachers, Black teachers, et cetera, demographically, that's going to still be a challenge for a while.
Correct.
So what's your theory about that, or your prognosis?
Well, I mean, the research says that you don't necessarily need someone who looks like you in order to benefit from therapy. But that being said, I think especially, in the past couple of years with George Floyd, with Breonna Taylor, and with all the things that have been going on in our world, the people that I've spoken to have said, listen, I know I can get a qualified provider anywhere, but I want somebody who understands my experience, and I don't have to constantly explain that. Now, that being said, I do think that there are therapists who are culturally competent, who really are committed to that. But yeah, it's just a bit easier when you don't have to explain something like your daily experience with bias and discrimination. Right. And the person you're talking to gets that. Really great example. Katora was mentioning primary care, and we all know the reality is there are healthcare disparities. There, sometimes it's a struggle to be heard when you go to a primary care doctor because they're very busy, and because maybe, all of those different intersectionalities aren't understood, or you don't have time to talk about how those impact your daily life. So yeah, I think that it is great when you can find somebody who kind of gets it, or at least says in their bio that they get it, and they work with clients from those backgrounds.
And Katora, any thoughts in that regard as well?
Well, I think people need to understand that you can vet or you can interview your healthcare professionals. You do not have to just accept whoever they send to you. You can ask questions. And I suggest, have been saying, in nursing, we suggest that you write down your concerns about your own physical health. You write down any questions that you may have about that clinician. I mean, I think that, my practice has always been to put those questions out there, regardless of who you are sitting in front of me. I would say to you, how do you feel about, have you had any thoughts or feelings about having a female clinician? Do you have any thoughts or feelings about having a female clinician of color? What are your thoughts about that? Oftentimes, people are looking at me like, why are you asking that question? Nobody's ever asked me that question before. But in me training clinicians, as Alicia will say, it can encourage them to do those things. That really kind of opens you up. It opens up some discussion, and they may not have too much to say. A lot of times they'll say, well, I'm okay. I'm okay. But I did have a woman of color that said, I'm not okay with this. And so then we went into a discussion, and she would come to my office week after week and say absolutely nothing. She wouldn't say anything. And I would sit there and I would be present with her. And then she began to talk. And now we still are like peripherally still in touch. And this has been, oh my God, a good 10, 15 years ago. But, it's just, it's up to the clinician to try to figure out different creative ways in order to connect. We used acupuncture, the ear acupuncture, which is an adjunct to treatment. And basically what it does, it just relaxes the individual. It calms the systems down. Whether I'm sitting in a room with a family, I will put magnets in ears or needles in some of those ears. We sit there for about 20 minutes and let the system calm down, because that's all people need to do first, is to relax, breathe, because you're coming in defensive because you don't think this person's going to hear you, going to understand you. But if you can relax and everybody in the room can just take a breath and then start that conversation. And that's really important. That's that joining thing that particularly is important for Indigenous and Black and Brown folk. We need to know that you can hear me. So I need to understand that if last week you said that your big mama was in the hospital, I better ask you about Big Mama as soon as you sit down. How's Big Mama this week? Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we have about 30 minutes. So ladies, let's go where the spirit moves us. A ton of questions come to my mind, but does anything pop out in your vision quest as we kind of commune this morning?
Well, I mean, I would say that you always have to think about the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual impact of bias, discrimination, racism. And I have, like I said,
say that to me in a barbershop or beauty shop language.
Okay. Racism can impact you emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And
you mean white behavior, Black behavior? This term racism is used so colloquially, I think this goes in people's ear.
Yeah. So I would say the daily experience of being discriminated against, of assumptions being made about you. And yes, that could apply to anyone. But for us as people of color, some of the things I've talked about in the past couple of years in particular, again, using 2020 as sort of a bookmark, the daily experience of, am I going to be pulled over for something? Am I going to be stopped in a store? Am I going to be, I don't know, singled out at work? Do I feel like I'm being treated differently in certain spaces? I will expand that to include, not just people of color, but people from other communities, women. Am I being treated differently at work because I am a woman? Also, people from the LGBTQ community, and more also people who are older. Right. So ageism is also very real in the workplace. So thinking about all of those different ways in which I am othered in the world, and how does that impact me emotionally, physically, and spiritually?
So girding your loins and putting on your armor is certainly, I mean, we can use those metaphors, but let's drill down a little further, Dr. Greer, in terms of what
Sure.
Dr. Rogers, in terms of what you just said.
Yeah. So I think people don't think about, until they have to, how much it wears you down.
Hmm.
How much those things wear you down, how sick and tired one becomes of constantly having to, I don't know, have the talk with our children, right? Why do I have to have the talk with my children about how to conduct themselves should they end up in a situation out in the world? I don't know, Katura, I'm sure you have a bunch of ideas about what I'm saying too.
Let's lean on your dynamic dual sister.
Yes.
Absolutely. Just when Dr. Greer just briefly talked about the pressures that we oftentimes experience, even in our workspace, regardless of what level that you are at. Especially if you are reaching a situation where you're in management. It's like that whole imposter syndrome. It's like, you keep getting these coded messages around, am I good enough? I gotta go the extra mile. Burnout is a real thing. At all levels, but especially when you start to move up into these managerial levels, it is a real thing. When you are told that, I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they worked in one of the systems, and they talked about, how they, as soon as they could retire, they retired. And when they retired, the system hired 2 people to do their job. 2 people to do the job that this person was doing for 20-something years alone. And that is a common thing. And, you keep saying, do I ask for help? If I ask for help, then maybe they'll think that I'm not competent enough to do this job, even though they know and you know. And it's those systemic and structural things that, aren't so tangible. They aren't as tangible as somebody standing in front of you and calling you out your name. Not as tangible as somebody, putting their knee on your neck. But it's those insidious things that wear your body down day in, day out. So and then it manifests in, you got all these connective tissue diseases, lupus and psoriasis and sarcoidosis, cancer. You got those kind of things that your body is telling you, look, whatever it is that you're doing in your life, it is wearing you down. So when you get ill, what is the first thing that your body does? It rests. It takes you out of the fray, right? You have to rest. They tell you if you have some connective tissue disease or cancer or some chronic thing, what do they recommend? Meditation. They recommend that you start to do more self-care. And self-care does not necessarily mean, people talk, oh yeah, you need to do self-care. No, self-care is like, you might have to remove some toxic people out of your life.
Amen.
That is self-care. You might have to change your diet. That is self-care. So when your family is gathering, they may want to, they used to call me the granola family, right? It was like, I don't eat this, we don't eat that, we don't eat that. And so what do? Even now, when I go places and they say, bring a dish, I bring whatever it is that I want to eat.
Salad.
Right. So I think that we have to, recognize that those things are happening, like the hypervigilance that we have to have with our children. I remember when my sons, especially my sons, started to drive, we had a station wagon and we had a sedan. They could not drive the sedan. My sons always had to take the station wagon because that wasn't anything that looked like a family car, and they're tall and big. So if they probably thought they were parents, right? So those kind of things that we have to process every day. When our children leave the house, you say a prayer, God, please bring them back, because it can just be a matter of them looking the wrong way. And they've become a victim. They now become a statistic. And so we really have to put our children in places that are nurturing, that are, and you have to be, we call it a helicopter mom. I just call it a present parent. I don't care if you're in public school, private school, whatever school that you are in. We know that the majority of those educators do not look like you and may not have your best interests at heart. From preschool through college, my children went to HBCUs. Why? They had no desire to be in school, in a majority school. The experience was night and day. I went to UConn. The message was, take a look around. 2 out of 3 of you, look to the left, 2 out of the 3 of you aren't going to graduate. Like, how are you going to tell me that? Because I know it couldn't be me, because, I knew who was waiting for me at home. My children go to HBCUs, they say, look to the left, look to the right. We're going to make every effort to make sure that you graduate together. That produces community. That produces a sense of support, because I'm going to now support the person to the left and to the right so that we can all graduate together. It's a whole different mindset when you're in different institutions. And so we really have to make sure that those children that are at other institutions that perhaps aren't as supportive, that we are present for them, that they know that we are a resource.
And I want to just piggyback off of that a little bit and talk about children and adolescents, and the explosion of mental health needs in younger people in the past couple of years, and specifically when we are talking about again, bias, discrimination, and the things that our children have had to see and hear. Right. And that we've had to somehow explain, yes, what you're seeing on TV, unfortunately, that is real. What you are hearing, that is real. And the amount of work it has taken for us parents to help our children navigate this new normal, this reality. Well, some of it's not new, but you know what I'm saying? This reality that we've all gone through in the past couple of years has been very, very hard. And I would say that it's been hard for all children, but I do think that for children in our community, it has sort of underscored the fact that maybe I'm not safe, right? So Couture is talking about the anxiety we have as parents trying to keep our kids safe, but I would say equally, more and more children in our community are like, oh, I might not be safe. That could be me out there. That could be me, in the street. That could be me in so many different situations. And so I think that any work we can do around helping parents cope with what your kids are going through in a positive way is always very helpful.
Let's go ahead, Couture, please.
And I think we need to just touch a little bit on how people cope with these experiences. That we, to really give space for healthy coping. Like I say, children learn what they live, but as adults, we live what we've learned. So if you've learned that alcohol, drugs, sex, workaholism is the way to get through life, that's how you're going to function as an adult initially, until it doesn't work for you anymore. So we have to give permission, and we have to carve out those spaces, especially in urban centers. I can't say enough how wonderful it is to be able to walk down the Farmington Canal. It is like I'm in the country, and you got trees, and you got you got solitude, you got trees. That's why I like to go to the golf course, because it's quiet and there's nature. But we have so many things that are just natural. We've been blessed in this community. You can go to Sleeping Giant. You can go to the beach. You can walk the Farmington Canal. You can walk downtown or do circles around the green. There are things that you can do that not only are good for exercise to move your body, but they're also, nature gives us energy. And we need to use those natural spaces. Find a place in your house. I don't care if it's a corner of your room that you can designate as your sacred space for you to sit in this wonderful thing called being still. Sit and be still. People struggle with that. The idea of being still, are you kidding me? I got to have I got to have a radio, or I got to be doing a video game. No, sit and be still and listen to your body, listen to your breathing, listen to your heart. Let that be part of your meditation. And you don't have to do it for a whole long time. 5 to 10 minutes and your body responds. The beauty of finding a practitioner that knows how to do acupuncture, the ear acupuncture, you learn it yourself. I can give you a strip of magnets. You don't need any training for magnets. There's no certification for it. It's totally there for your use, to place magnets in your ears, your kids' ears, to help you calm down. And then that you can get a box of 100 of them things for less than $5. So we have to begin to rethink what are those things that I can do to bring it down a notch or two in order for me to be present for my children, to be present at work. I mean, I learned that as a young mother. I had 3 children under the age of 5. And them little babies, they came home one day. I had one in my arm. I had one in kindergarten. I had one that was in preschool. And they were, I picked them up from daycare and was like, go, 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 go. And they just started crying and carrying on. I looked at their little faces. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And so from that day on, I would bring them home and we would have 15 minutes of quiet time. No TV, no nothing. They could lay in the bed with me. They could do whatever. But we were having 15 minutes of quiet time. Mm-hmm. And it made a world of difference. And it's those little nuggets that we can share in a group experience or share in, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a therapy experience, but like the Zola experience will create that kind of a community that, excuse me, that says, what is working for you? What has worked for you? And I might hear something that Dr. Greer may have tried that I hadn't tried. Don't try that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cost money.
Right. To again extend off of what Keturah is saying, the little bit of time that I create with my daughter is going for walks with the dog. We have to walk the dog anyway, but instead of, let's use that as a time for her and I to reconnect, to talk about our day. We also make a habit of talking about our day as we're coming home from school. She is very vocal about asking for more time with me. And so I try to create those blocks. We watched a movie last night. Anywhere that you can do that to reconnect with not just your children, but the people in your life. And I think some of what I've been seeing in the past couple of years, because of the situations that we've all gone through, is either continued isolation, right? So we isolated because we had to, but now some of us forgot how to get back out there. We need to work on that. And also some of us might have forgotten that we need to be out there, and isolating for long periods of time is not healthy for us. And Keturah's right. Getting outside is one really great way to reverse that. Also, I think more of us need to get off of our devices. I talk a lot about doom scrolling on your device. Reading all the negative news in the whole world on your device is very, very toxic. I can guarantee you don't need to be doing that all day, because it's going to be there, whether you look at it now or later. So you can take some breaks. You can set some boundaries with your device, so that your mind isn't flooded with all of this information all the time. And to Keturah's point, this is part of having some silence occasionally. Another thing that I want to make sure I talk about is revenge procrastination, which is staying up late because you think you deserve time to yourself, which we all do, but don't take away from your sleep to do that. That's not going to help you. We need our sleep. We don't get enough. You heard Katura talking about the different diseases that are impacted by stress. I'm going to keep it even more simple. Diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol are very, very much impacted by our stress levels and our lack of sleep. So are you getting enough sleep? Can you do a little more to go to bed 15, 20 minutes earlier? Your device will still be there in the morning. I promise.
I just want to state really clearly, there are some individuals that do need the support of pharmaceuticals, that may need to have the support of medication. And we don't want that to be a stigma either. Some of us that do, and go to a licensed professional psychiatrist and get that assessment that you may need to do that. And both of us work with individuals that are prescribers, and we refer. It's like, well, maybe this, I may have assessed you, but it may be that, you might need a little bit of help. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have to take this medication forever. Amen. And for some, you may need to take the medication. It's just like you need to normalize that like you do. Like I have a thyroid thing. So I take Synthroid every day, right? So, but if I had a thing that I needed to take a medication every day so that I could have mental stability and a sense of peace, and then that's what you do. That's what you do. So I think that we have to, as a community, we have to, like I say, we have to normalize our human experience. If your human experience is that, look, my generational traumas and all the stuff that I've been through, I'm the one that's carrying it, and I have these chemical changes that have been going on. I need that kind of help. Go get it. Please go get it so that you can be present, so that you can do the things that you choose to do, want to do, need to do.
Yep. And I'll put it out there again. We have said the names of the agencies. I'll throw them out there again. CMHC and Cornell Scott cover all of New Haven. So, the help is there. But if you do not want to go to one of those two places, there's also Clifford Beers, right? There's also, you can go online to Psychology Today. You can call Yale. They'll direct you. The resources are there. We just have to not be afraid to seek them.
And ladies, we have about 4 or 5 more minutes. So as the spirit moves you in terms of something we may not have discussed or something that might have just emerged in your mind, I'd like to hear a little bit more. Dr. Rogers, you mentioned your involvement with Cheshire Academy. And we had this advent of diversity, equity and inclusion, the movement, if you will. Is there, what's your prognosis about the continued effort to educate others, to treat others kindly?
That it is a ongoing, everyday process, and that the way to make it work is to just think of it as, this is how I understand the people that I work with, the people that I may treat. I need to also take the initiative to go out there and get that information, right? And so it isn't waiting for somebody like your DEI officer, for example, to give you the training. It is taking the initiative to go out there and get the information so that you can understand people better and not make assumptions about others. It is also asking questions. It is being really honest. Like, you know what? I don't know much about that culture. Can you tell me a little bit more so I can understand it? It's being honest about your own, we'll say, blind spots. And that is how you create connections with people, and a start to creating safer spaces is admitting that you don't know.
I think for me, it's also understanding that you know, it's now DEI, but you know, having been around for a minute, it's had a number of iterations up until now. But it is an inside job.
Mhm.
This is an inside job. If you have not taken the time to look at your own biases, what messages did you get from your family of origin about people that were different from you? Because that's what you're carrying into the room. What did they say about how do you treat people from with different orientations or melanin in their skin? And the reality of this digital world that we're in, and the fact that, you know, you can have teletherapy now, you can treat people around the world. And 3/4 of the people around the world look like me, look like the folks that are on this screen. So you need to do your work. When we talk about do your work, examine yourself. Go see somebody or get supervision with a therapist that of color that is of a different ethnic origin than you, that has had a different life experience than you.
Mhm.
Go and seek that out if you're a therapist, so that you can begin to look at your own stuff,
Right.
your own biases, and where did those things come from, so you can begin your own healing process, right? So I know that my friend Denise Keys is doing Ubuntu, that is a storytelling
Mhm.
a platform that deals with diversity and helping you to listen to other people's stories and then examining other people's stories. There is a lot of stuff that's out there. You know, the People's Institute is another one that talks about anti-racism work.
Mhm.
You've got to do your work before you sit in front of me. Don't sit in front of me. And like Dr. Greer said, and if you are going to sit in front of me, own your ignorance. Own it. Because I can get real dumb in a therapy session. I don't get it. I don't understand. Yeah.
I have seen this happen. Yes.
As we wind down, and I want to give everybody the chance for the last word. How folks can reach out to you? You certainly, I'm confident and comfortable that you've stimulated folks' desire to kind of connect. So, Couture, folks can reach you how again?
Go on our website, www.thezolaexperience.org. You can reach me at Couture Bryant at thezolaexperience.org. And also you can find me on social media under Couture Bryant.
And Dr. Rogers?
Yes. So my website is in progress, but you can find me on Psychology Today. You can also find me on Therapy for Black Girls, as well as you can shoot me an email. My email is agreer.roadtowellness@gmail.com.
We have about a minute each. And so Couture and Dr. Rogers, we start off with this phrase, understanding depression. I want to give you a chance to either explain that further or rephrase it, or talk about the importance of why 2023 should be focused on that paradigm. Couture?
I think that we need to keep the word depression in its that it is also a natural human experience after you've experienced something that has been traumatic to you. That if you don't feel sad, then I would think that your affect was a little off, and then to another space, another diagnosis, right? So, you know, but it's important for you to be in tune to
Yes.
your feelings and your thoughts when things happen to you.
Yes.
And, you know, and we have to stop giving our children silent messages, like, you know, especially our little boys, you know, stop crying. Well, I'm hurt. Yeah, you know, we're gonna get through it. We're gonna be the strong. We're the strong Black woman. We're gonna do such and such and such. Stop it. And allow yourself to validate what is going on so you can go through it, because we will file it intellectually back here, but emotionally it's all over the place.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And with that, I'll say, as Couture mentioned, depression is a natural response to things that we go through, and we all just went through something together as a planet, and we all have a lot of stuff to process about that. whether it's the financial impact, the, not having a job, housing, all these things. There have been so many impacts to all of us globally as human beings in the past couple of years that a lot of us have something. A lot of us came out on the other side with something. Recognize that, process it. If you do not process it, I can assure you it'll come out in other ways. So, please seek help and remember that help can really simply be, I just need somebody objective to talk to. Don't think so much about, am I sick enough? I just need somebody who's not related to me, who doesn't really know me, who I can sit with and let it all out.
Excellent. Excellent. Ladies, thank you deeply. Harry, that's a wrap. And again, the road to wellness. Let's kind of travel it safely.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road.